The central battleground in the debate over abortion rights has shifted in recent years to the states. In just the past 2 months, 5 states, Alabama, Arkansas, Kansas, North Dakota, and Virginia, have approved more stringent restrictions on abortion. In North Dakota, for example, the new law prohibits abortion as soon as a fetal heartbeat is detected, which can be as soon as 6 weeks.
North Dakota believes in the life of the unborn child, believes that the heartbeat is life.
Such laws are aimed at undermining the standards set out in the Supreme Court's 1973 ruling in Roe v. Wade. That decision gave women the right to an abortion until the fetus is viable outside the womb, about 24 weeks into pregnancy. Speaking last Friday at a Planned Parenthood conference, President Obama took aim at measures designed to limit abortion rights. He told the crowd such policies would, quote, roll back basic rights when it comes to women's health.
When you read about some of these laws, you want to check the calendar. You want to make sure you're still living in 2013. 40 years after the Supreme Court affirmed a woman's constitutional right to privacy, including the right to choose, we shouldn't have to remind people that when it comes to a woman's health, no politician should get to decide what's best for you.
The president also pledged to fight every step of the way on behalf of Planned Parenthood. 2 Republicans in Congress and several GOP-controlled state legislatures have introduced initiatives to defund the organization. Meanwhile, anti-abortion activists are also pointing to the trial of Philadelphia doctor Kermit Gosnell, seeking to pressure lawmakers to enact more restrictive regulations for abortion clinics. Gosnell is facing 4 charges of first-degree murder related to late-term abortion procedures. The jury in that case began its deliberations today.
So how does each side see the focus as it's shifted from Washington to the states, and what's next? We're joined by Charmaine Yoest, president of Americans United for Life, and Ilyse Hogue, the newly installed president of NARAL Pro-Choice America. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Ilyse Hogue, let me start with you. What do you see happening in the states that is leading to all these recent actions?
You know, we see an extreme agenda taking hold in some of these states that, first of all, doesn't find support across America. 70% of Americans believe that Roe should be upheld. And we're seeing out-of-touch politicians actually not only rolling back women's freedom, but endangering women's lives as they put more and more arbitrary restrictions on women being able to access safe and legal abortion, as is their constitutional right.
Now, I know, Charmaine Yoest, you have a different take on it, but why do you think it's happening now? Why so much in the states now?
Well, because America's abortion policy is actually out of touch with the American people. We have an abortion policy that is so radical that only China and North Korea and Canada have as radical a policy as we do.
How do you use that word radical? What does that mean?
Most of the countries around the world start to limit abortion after 12 weeks, and we can have abortion in America for any reason throughout all 9 months of pregnancy. So what you're seeing is this rising tide of pro-life legislation is being responsive to the fact that most Americans have a common sense approach to abortion where they want to see parental consent, informed consent, clinic regulations. This horrible trial that you're seeing in Philadelphia of Kermit Gosnell with his House of Horrors abortion clinic in Philadelphia shows you exactly what happens when you have a completely unregulated abortion industry allowed to have their own oversight over themselves.
Well, that trial has gotten a lot of attention.
I'm outraged.
I'm
outraged, and I've been out in front saying I'm outraged since I took this position.
Right.
I think it's critically important because it's exactly the arbitrary restrictions, the lack of funding available for women who need safe and medical care that have driven these vulnerable women into the clutch of Kermit Gosnell. I get up and go to work every single day to prevent women from being victimized by the likes of Kermit Gosnell. What we had there was not a failure of regulation. What Kermit Gosnell was doing was illegal in all 50 states. It was illegal by federal law. And it is people like the anti-choice extremists who are putting roadblock after roadblock, driving reputable doctors out of business and driving women to the Kermit Gosnells.
Is there, looking at the states again, because I want you to respond on the state issue, the trial aside, Give me an example of what you see happening in a state that you find egregious.
Well, I mean, where to start, right? South Carolina. We're not talking about regulations that keep women safe. I agree. It's absolutely common sense and mainstream that women should have safety and in their access to abortion care. What we're seeing in South Carolina is that facilities that provide abortion are subject to arbitrary restrictions like how long the grass is outside the clinic, as though that has anything to do with the care going on inside. These are backdoor, back alley efforts to drive clinics out of business, drive women to back alley providers, and harm them in the end, not keep them safe.
Okay, your response to a specific example like that.
Sure, absolutely. Well, this is a really disingenuous argument because NARAL and NOW and Planned Parenthood have never met an abortion restriction that they're willing to support. Every single time you see common sense solutions being put on the table, they come out and they want to see, they want to be completely unrestricted. And here's the thing, Jeff, if I can make an analogy. This isn't a question of access. For example, we could have plenty more restaurants in America. You could have all the restaurants that you wanted if you didn't have the Department of Public Health to oversee and to come in and do inspections. But then you would have a whole lot more food poisoning. And that's what you're seeing in the abortion industry today. Yes, we have back alley abortions, and they are run by big abortion in this country.
Is the focus in the states precisely because of a dissatisfaction on your side with what was happening in the courts?
Well, what's happening out there in our culture today is a grassroots uprising where you're seeing a response to a completely out of control abortion industry. Just in the last 6 months, we've seen 2 women die in clinics that were legal abortion clinics, and yet there's no oversight being taken care of, and so as a result, you have them. You know, what other industry do you see that completely has oversight? For example, in our country today, we have veterinary clinics that are better regulated than abortion clinics.
And you're citing public attitudes that
Well, no, actually, I'm citing the fact that abortion clinics or medical facilities that provide abortion should and are upheld to the same safety standards as other medical facilities. What we are seeing, and this is where it's hard for me to hear Charmaine, with all due respect, use the word common sense. Common sense means a commonly held value by the community. 70% of Americans believe that these are decisions that are best made by women, their families, and their doctors. These are medical decisions, not by politicians or busybodies. I respect Charmaine's decision. I just don't think, like most Americans, that she should be the one to make the laws. These are medical procedures best decided by families and their doctors.
Can I just respond to this, because I think this is a really important point. Ilyse is being disingenuous by describing her position, because Ilyse, I'd like it noted for the record that she's just come out and said that she supports clinic regulations that are based on what we expect from other surgical centers. That's exactly the kind of legislation that just passed in Alabama, and yet there was a firestorm in Virginia, for example.
But you were also citing a 12-week you were comparing to other countries. Some of these states do go further than that.
But she's saying,
that
so abortion clinics then ought to be regulated like other surgical centers, and so then we agree.
We believe that women should, that the facilities that support these procedures should be, so they're clean, they're safe. What we had in Philadelphia and Gosnell was not a problem of regulation. It was a problem of enforcement. Even the Pennsylvania governor had said it was a problem of enforcement. But what we're seeing Charmaine's group push for are arbitrary restrictions. The width of the hallway. The width of the hallway has no bearing on the medical care that a woman can get. The number of parking spaces, as they're pushing for in Virginia.
Do you, in a word, both expect that this is going to end up in the back in the courts?
Absolutely, and we're excited about what we're seeing in the courts. For example, we're involved in a case in Oklahoma right now where there was legislation that required the abortion industry to dispense chemical abortion in the manner that it was approved by the FDA, and yet the abortion industry, big abortion, with whom Ilyse is allied, oppose even something that's as commonsensical as that.
Do you think we're going?
We're already seeing a number of court cases, including ones that Americans United for Life, I think, support, saying that go far beyond Roe, far beyond women's ability to decide about abortion with their doctors. They're supporting rollbacks of contraception. They actually have model legislation on their website that would limit IVF, as we've seen in the personhood amendments. This is a radical agenda, and this is the antithesis of common sense. Americans believe that women and their families and their doctors can make these personal decisions, not meddling politicians.
All right.
Well, that's just a misrepresentation of our opinion. We are working to make sure that there are common sense regulations that protect women from an industry that preys on their health.
All right. To be continued, I promise.
Thank you, Jeff.
Charmaine Yoest, Ilyse Hogue, thank you both very much.
Thank you.